respected Professor Patnaik, Professor Rajan Gurikal, Padmasri Dr. M.C. Chandradattan, Dr. Jayachandran, Dr. Naseeb, Professor Abdul Salim, Sidi Rabir, and distinguished dignitaries and dear students. Good morning to one and all. So, the theme, as you know, that the world economies are facing almost similar political and political and economic challenges, which are subjected to under the limit of the social and ecological situations or ecological limits. Recently, a lot of research studies shows that human activities affects the ecological sustainability. The 2015 the Journal of Anthropocene Review reported that changes in the Earth system during the last 30 years is greater than the last 50 years. This is purely due to human activity, and it is a condition of great acceleration, and this great acceleration heading towards to great collapse. So this shows that the next few decades will surely be a tipping point in the evolution of Anthropocene. In this situation, the neoclassical economics is ecologically and socially unsustainable because it fails to account the external cost of related to both social and environmental foundations. So the planetary system is a complex system of fragile equilibria which enabled mankind to engage in the process of civilization. Therefore, systematic changes are necessary to move towards a sustainable equilibrium path. We can see that the imbalances are not due to the natural phenomena, but it is constructed by the human beings. So we need an ethical balance among the economy, society and ecology, society and economy. So the present shareholder capitalism that is based on the extractive growth for several years, that is fails to create social benefits and ecological benefits. So as a general principle, one of the solution is the planetary stewardship. The question here are, how can we protect our Mother Earth? In what way the existing conceptual framework can be modified to protect the planet? What are the changes needed to make an effective policy? And in order to solve these issues, we need a transdisciplinary approach, and we tried to incorporate resource persons from different fields, and we classified the major themes into different headings like ecosystem services and well-being, social, economic and ecological sustainability and sustainable development, accounting for ecological sustainability, rural and urban ecology, and sustainable ecological practices for India. We hope that the conference will be a thought-provoking endeavor to reach alternative solutions for the current issues associated with ecology, economy and society. And please, and not the least, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Professor Abdul Salim, the Honorary Director of the Inter-University Center for Alternative Economics, for giving me this opportunity to coordinate the international conference. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. To the academic community, Professor Prabhath Patnaik needs no introduction. He is a renowned economist who has achieved international acclaim with his incisive analysis of economics and politics. He was former Vice Chairman, Kerala State Planning Board, and is currently Emeritus Professor, JNU. I would now request Professor Prabhath Patnaik, sir, to kindly deliver the inaugural address.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Ganesh, Dr. Chandradattan, Professor Salim, Dr. Anita, delegates to this conference, members of faculty, students, friends. I have spoken very often in this hall, so often, even going back to the time before this hall was renovated, that I almost feel I belong here. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important conference, which is also occurring in the midst of an ecologically generated crisis, even in Kerala's economy and society. Basically, I think the unsustainability of the process of expanded reproduction of wealth that capitalism entails has been much discussed. But what has been discussed really is the natural implications of this unsustainability. What is not discussed is the social implications of this unsustainability. So I'd like to devote a bit of time to talking about the social implications of the unsustainability of the kind of process of expanded reproduction of material wealth that capitalism entails. Let me begin with a few general remarks. We know that all production is, of course, social production, in the sense that all production is something that occurs with people acting in groups. The idea of a Robinson Crusoe is really more a matter of fiction than of social reality. As a result, this social production, however, occurs through labor acting upon nature. There was a time, for instance, when the German Social Democratic Party had written a program which began by saying that labor is the source of all wealth. And Marx, who was the spiritual leader of the German Social Democratic Party, critiqued this remark in something which is called a critique of Gotha program, in which Marx said, no, labor acting on nature is the source of all wealth. When we talk about labor acting on nature, it has a number of implications. The physiocrats, of course, interpreted this to mean that since there are certain activities in which labor is palpably acting on nature, like agriculture, in other activities it is not, the origin of a surplus goes back to the fact that nature helps labor, that therefore agriculture is the origin of all surplus. This was, of course, a view which was criticized by Adam Smith, but the point is that this is one of the immediate palpable consequences in the realm of economic theory of a recognition of the fact that all production is based on labor acting on nature. But I would not like to go into that. There are two other implications which I think are of great importance, and really I'd like to emphasize how in economics not enough recognition has been accorded to the fact that actually labor acts on nature to produce. One implication is that if production is based upon labor acting on nature, then of course there is a diversity in nature, in the natural habitat in which production takes place, and consequently there must be a diversity in the production possibilities which are open in different societies, in different contexts, open to different societies in different contexts. For instance, what is open to tropical economies because of the specific natural habitat in which production takes place in the tropics is not open to the temperate economies. One very obvious implication of this is the fact that in the tropical lands, you have production occurring year-round, throughout the year. You have, for instance, in agriculture, in most parts of India, 3 crops, 2 crops certainly, 3 crops being raised throughout the year. People are cultivating the land. While in the temperate regions, in the winter months, this is just not possible. There's just no production that takes place in the winter months, and consequently, there's only a part of the year in which agricultural operations take place. Now this in turn implies there's also that there are certain kinds of crops which can be grown here, which cannot be grown in the tropical regions. Fibers, beverages, and so on are obvious examples. So you find on the one hand a certain specificity in the tropical habitat which arises both because production is throughout the year and also because of the fact that certain kinds of crops can be grown here which cannot be grown in the temperate regions. I mean, England cannot grow mangoes. So the point is that this has a very important implication which economics is not only unaware of, but in fact its being unaware of has led to all kinds of erroneous theories. I'll give you two examples. One obviously erroneous theory is the following. Throughout the 19th century, you had a massive emigration. You had two waves of massive emigration that took place. There was one wave of emigration that occurred within the temperate regions from Europe, from England for instance, to places like United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and so on, other temperate regions. And there was another massive migration that actually took place from countries like India and China to other tropical and subtropical regions like the West Indies, like Fiji, like Trinidad, etc. to East Africa, etc. So you had two different streams of migration. One, the temperate migration, was a high wage migration, while the tropical, subtropical migration was a low wage migration. Why is it that there was a wage differential? Why? And that's a very important question in economics. These two migrations, of course, were separated so that the low wage migration could not be used to lower the wages in the high wage migration area. But why was there a difference in wages? The answer which Arthur Lewis, Nobel Prize winning development economist, provides is that because of